Building your own tools is almost more satisfying than buying a brand new one, especially if you can't even find it online. The very first tool on our list, if you were to go buy it right now, is going to cost way more than $200. So let's get started. Our first tool we're going to make is a pipe rollout wheel. Now, you guys have probably seen this one on the channel. I've used it quite a lot, and I must say, it's very versatile. You can move it up and down. It's got a nice brake on it, chuck, the whole 9 yards. But it's definitely not near as cheap as what we're about to throw together, and all it really needs to do is spin and brake. Now, you can use whatever material you want to make this wheel out of, but what I've got here is a piece of 2-inch tubing with one of those pesky seams in it, and then I've got a piece of 1 3/4 tubing, some 1/2-inch flat bar, maybe some 3/8, a couple good-sized bolts, and something for a handle, right? So I've got a piece of 12-inch pipe scrap that I'm going to end up cutting out of it. The first thing I went and did is I cut the 2-inch tube down to about 8 inches long. And again, it had that pesky seam in it, so this tube was not going to be able to go in there, much less spin. So I had to spend a little bit of time grinding that seam back. Started with the teeth-chattering burr bit and then ended up switching to a flat wheel. I definitely recommend that if you have to grind it. But they do make seamless pipe or seamless tube if you can find those correlating sizes. This is just what I had laying around. So once we give it the final deburr, we can slide this 1 3/4 tube through this 2-inch. Ironically enough, I'm going to end up using my rollout wheel to make the wheel for this handle here. So I needed to go ahead and cut this thing down and lay it out. So we're going to go ahead and cut a piece out with our cutoff wheel, get a little bit of the rust off of the outside, take our fiber disc and make sure there's going to be no sharp edges because I'm going to be running my hand all up and down this. Once we get to the 1/2-inch plate, I'm going to do exactly what I did back in the day and pretty much eyeball everything. We usually didn't build anything on a nice fabrication table. So I'm going to get this 1/2-inch plate and take it over to the cutting torch. Luckily, I got one of these and I'm not going to skimp out on it. I could cut off wheel all this stuff, but obviously this is going to be a little bit easier for me. So we're going to go ahead and cut that vertical piece and then I'm going to cut the other 2 pieces so that they're going to intersect. That way everything fits in this circle like an X. Once I've got everything roughly eyeballed together, I can start tacking it in place. I'm going to use what I used to use back in the day, which I almost always had a TIG torch in hand with a lift arc kind of setting. No foot pedal or remotes or any fancy things. Just give it some beans right off the jump and we'll get it all tacked. And that's how we're probably going to weld up just about everything today. I did forget to clean a couple of these plates on the sides so you can see how that mill scale is going to affect the cleanliness of these TIG welds. So definitely try to prep everything. But again, I'm just going to go ahead and sand those ugly boys off. We're going to want that flat anyway. Now this is where we need to be a little bit better with our eyeballs and maybe pull out a tape measure and square because we want to center this 1 3/4 post right on the middle of these plates here. And once we get everything center and it's nice and square, we can tack it down and then weld it all the way around. Now I'm going to go ahead and lay out some notches. These notches need to be long enough to hopefully get to the edge, but still sturdy enough not to take away some of the structural integrity of the wheel, because you might put some heavy stuff on it. These notches were obviously going to be easily cut with the cutting torch, so we're going to go ahead and rough cut those all the way out. I'd like to say they were perfect, but we had to go back in there with the burr bit for a bit and then touch the back side up with the fiber disc. Once we've got those slots roughed out, we can go ahead and maybe sand down this 1 3/4 tube a little bit to smoothen it up. This was like an old jack stand tube that, I just had laying around. So it fit perfect. I put a little grease on it to hopefully help that spin a little bit better. And we went ahead and welded a stop on it because we got to have a break. We'll be able to bolt a couple different sizes of pipe on here, not necessarily up to 12-inch, but even if it didn't have a flange on there, this is some scrap metal that we don't mind just welding straight to, if we're allowed to do that. All we really needed it to do is spin, and I think it spins okay, but I feel like if it didn't have so much weight in the center here, more weight on the outside, we'd get a nice continuous spin. But regardless, it spins, it has a brake. You can even change the orientation of it wherever you put this tube. You may not even need the bolts. You could probably clamp a part down and make it just easier to move. It beats getting on your back and welding the bottom. Now, if you're a welder that typically finds himself working on a bench a lot, a welder's third hand is kind of a no-brainer. There are thousands of versions of these. You need to have a little bit of a heavy base, something that's going to fall, land on it, and hold a part for you. I encourage you to get creative with things. I used an assortment of different diameters of round stock and some ball bearings that I had just rolling around the shop. The idea was that it would land in a couple of these holes on my table, whether it be this way or that way. They don't land that way, unfortunately, but it still will be able to land. I can have these 2 prongs hold 2 pieces of metal down if I needed just a little bit of weight, or even up on the side of something. I've noticed I can even lean it over. With this other side, it's more of a singular point. It doesn't land flat. It'll still grab something, I guess, a little higher. I think that's something that I would have done differently, was make this just a straight piece instead of a little bit of an angle. Welder's third hand comes in many shapes and sizes. Encourage you to make one. Now, the next tool on our list is actually one that I've showed y'all before. That's the braided copper ground. Remember, you can find the copper wherever you want to find it. I found it in 3 old TIG rigs that were nice and busted. We stripped them out, we got the copper cable out of them, and then we went about doing a nice braid from end to end. And remember, you can make these as long and as short as you want. Once it was all braided, we just threw a couple connectors on one end and a lug on the other, and boom, you got yourself a ground. And man, when I say that I thought that a lot more people knew about these or didn't know there was so much ignorance out there about welding and grounds and how that all works, I think we should definitely address some of that, because I think some of y'all think this does way worse things than it actually does, because maybe you used yours wrong, or maybe you saw someone use one wrong one time, or you just straight up just think that this is just gonna hurt you. I promise you, it doesn't bite any different than a regular ground. The whole point of one of these braided grounds is in case you don't have an open end of a piece of pipe or whatever to clamp to. There's nowhere to clamp. And in my experience, most of the welds that I needed to make, the quality control required you to weld within 3 feet of your weld. That way you weren't running a bunch of current through the structure, through valves, through gaskets, whatever it may be, causing way more harm than good. You most certainly should not have this big copper ground laying on the ground. It's not going to hurt the welding that you're doing unless it's touching something else metal. Then it's going to be probably a problem. But if you just give it a couple extra wraps around whatever you're doing and get it off the ground, it's going to be perfectly fine for you. The next thing you'll say is, oh, that's super duper dangerous. You're going to kill yourself. When you put a ground on any material, all that metal is hot. If you can do it just like a regular ground, you can light up barehanded. I'm only doing this to prove a point. Do not do this at home. Touching the bare cable while we're welding with no gloves, no protection. It's not shocking me. Unless I decide to put myself in between the ground and the electrode, put my thumb on that, you're going to light yourself up. But that doesn't have anything to do with this ground. That's any ground. The next big comment that I always get is that's going to arc mark on everything that you put it on. So if this isn't like cinched real tight and it's loose and it's able to move or slide, it has the capability of arcing out. Compared to the other ground, it still arcs off a lot less because there are so many contact points. That's the glory of this copper ground, is everywhere it's touching material, not just 2 points like on a clamp, hundreds of points all around this. It's not going to put a very aggressive arc mark if it does. That's, again, why I think this is such a great tool to have. But use it right, just like anything else. Now, of course, there are some tools as a welder you should probably keep to the professionals to build, like a welding machine. Shout out to Everlast for building this bad boy right here. This is the Lightning 212. This is a really sick machine. It's a TIG, stick, and spool gun machine. This one right here comes with everything you need. Your ground, your regulators, your gas hose, your stinger for stick welding. It comes with a pretty nice TIG rig, and it comes with a spool gun. So you pretty much have everything you need. It might end up being my new dedicated TIG welder because it also has the ability to spool gun. And when I say spool gun, I think most people think aluminum. Not just aluminum. You could throw carbon steel in there. You could throw stainless steel in there. Pretty sweet little rig right here. Let us know down in the comments what you'd like to see this machine get put through as far as giving it a good test drive. Shout out to Everlast for making a sick rig. All of the stuff that I've done in either boilers, power plants, tanks, pressure vessels, you were allowed to weld and grind on the pipe. And that's where you always wanted to have a couple of these bad boys in your box. Now, essentially what these plate dogs are for are to eliminate high-low out of your material. Plate dogs are really easy to make. On the job site, we would just find a piece of thick material laying around, and usually the fitters had some spare bolts. This is definitely a 10-minute craft. We're looking to lay them out in kind of the shape of an Oklahoma. Just a little bit of a stubby end there. Something that's still going to have some meat to it, so whenever you put a lot of force on it, it's not going to just bend. I like to just go ahead and clean up everything just because we are going to weld to the nuts and weld these to a piece of material. Ironically enough, I did a lot of prep on the plate and did not clean any of the zinc coating off the nut. Luckily, I have enough tungsten to get through these welds. I'm going to make a couple little passes on there just to make sure they got enough meat on them. Because again, these are meant to hold pressure. And the idea on a piece of pipe where I'm most familiar with it is we would weld 2, 3 of these. Now remember, we don't want to put a whole bunch of weld because we're going to have to remove these things. We'll have the dogs on each side. We'll be able to take a wrench to it and start adjusting the high-low out of the pipe. Then the welder can go about tacking in between those plate dogs. Once all the tacks are in, we can remove the pressure off the nuts off the plate dog, and then you could go about knocking the dogs off. But when you do that, you're likely going to rip some of the base material. So you're going to want to dab a little bit of wire in there. Go ahead and blend it down with your Cubitron 3 products. And now you're none the wiser. We can go about our merry way. Now, those plate dogs, they're great for big stuff, but if you're trying to work on smaller stuff, they can be kind of in the way, especially if you're working inside of a boiler. So that's where you need something like this here, tube chain clamp, right? Where you can just get it in a spot, point it one direction, grab 2 pieces of material, and then you'll be able to virtually fit any size piece of tube, really up to like 3 inches, really all this is good for, but it fits in just one side and it gets all the sides lined up for you. All you're gonna need is a little bit of tube, a thread coupler, some all thread, piece of angle iron, a little bit of channel, and some chain. I started off with the C channel. I cut it down to size a little bit, down to about 5 inches or so. And we're going to take it right over to the gas axe to cut it down to size and haphazardly put a pretty rough looking hole on there. But it'll do just fine. You just got to do your best to grind the rest. That fiber disc will take care of all your problems. I'm going to actually cut this coupler in half because I'm going to use both halves of it. And then I'll take that fiber disc and kind of round off the edges a little bit and then lay that first half of the coupler in that channel iron. I'm going to weld it all the way around on both sides with the 7018. And then I'll just attach this other half of the coupler to the top of the all thread once I've threaded it all the way through so that I have something to grab a hold of. You could put an impact on this, you could put a wrench on this in order to tighten whatever you need to tighten. But it's not going to tighten anything without this piece underneath, so we're going to set that aside. We're going to go ahead and notch out that tube. Just needs to be big enough for your all thread, and then weld that all the way around haphazardly. Now we need to go back to the C channel. We're going to need somewhere for this chain to latch, so we're going to go ahead and take the 1/8 inch cut and grind wheel and notch that channel out so that that latch fits. And then we're going to take roughly 5 foot of chain and weld one end to it. Now you're going to need to know that your chain and your notch need to be on the same side. I'm not going to realize this until after I've already notched and welded that chain on, that I needed to go ahead and move the notch to the other side. But now you can see we've got ourselves a chain clamp. This is a tube clamp. So when you have 2 pieces of tubing that are offset, you can tighten these up so that they're even. That's the idea. This was what we used when we worked in boilers and you had a whole water wall and you needed to line up new tubes. This made your life a whole lot easier. One welder could fit it, the other welder on the other side could tack it, remove it, and you're in business. Luckily for us, it also serves another function on other size tubing too, like square tubing. So it isn't just a one-trick pony. I think it's a pretty nice thing to have in your box, and it really doesn't take up a whole lot of room. Handy little guy. Before we get to my favorite tool on the list, let's talk about what I think is pretty handy to have in your toolbox, which is the little bender. It's got a big handle on it, but felt like I needed one of these, so I dug out some 3/8 plate from the scrap bin again, and I found a little stick of some 5/8 round stock. I do think I kind of butchered it, to be honest, but we're going to start by taking that round stock and cut it into 3 2-inch sections. Deburr the edges really quick so they're at least nice and smooth. And then I went about laying out the plates with these 2 pins. I kind of tried to make it where I was going to be able to bend like 1/2 inch material in here. So I wanted to kind of carefully lay it out along with the handle next to it before I took it over to the torch. Really not sure why I went through all the effort of laying it all out, pre-cutting the holes with the drill just to put some haggard old holes in there. I definitely recommend going out and getting the drill bit size that you're looking for so that you have the perfect fit in here, because I really did not want to weld the top sides of these. You want anything to sit really flush with that backing plate, and I left some haggard holes. I ended up doing the plug welds on the back like you wanted to do, but I did go around the round stock and put a bead as little material as possible, but I had to fill some of those voids that I left. As far as the handle goes, I did want to make sure that the hole was as circular as possible, but I was just making it bigger than I needed to. Then I took a little bit of tubing that had some decent wall size to it, and I put a big old notch in it with a cut and grind wheel, just about center, and then I welded it right to the head here. For all intensive purposes, this thing really worked. It worked great on some flat material that I had. I did try to stick some 1/2 inch in there, and I had the vise sitting in this table here, and it just isn't heavy enough. God, stupid little table. But for small stuff, it worked. It did put a little bit of a twist in it, and I think because I had that little bit of weld on there, I'll probably end up remaking this one again. Our next tool really pairs well with the first tool on our list, the rollout wheel. And if you fabricate any type of pipe to any length, you know you're going to have a jack stand or 2 underneath. And a regular V-head jack stand is the most common one. And they're really just kind of not really conducive for rolling around material. They can be a little bit frustrating trying to kick it into place where you need it. Here's what I did. I took this scrap 3/16 inch thick plate, and I'm going to try to lay it out so that I can make kind of a Frankenstein little box, an open-ended rectangle tube. And then for 2 of those pieces, I'm going to go ahead and punch and drill a couple holes big enough for the bolt that I need to fit in there. I want 2 bolts to sit right on top of there so we get everything nice and secure when it needs to be. I went ahead and started to form this box around the jack stand I had in front of me. I just thought that was the easiest way. And once I had everything clamped in, I put that other piece on with a little bit of a spacing rod so that once it was all tacked together, I could kind of force it back off. And then once that little wire fell out, it slid on really easily. At that point, we're going to go ahead and get everything off to the bench and start welding it out on all the sides. Again, we're going to Frankenstein this up real quick. There were some kind of big gaps. The next thing is probably the most expensive thing we bought on the list, which was these 4 transfer bearings that ran about $50 for all 4 of them. I'm going to go ahead and cut the bolt off the back because those were in my way. And I know you guys are upset whenever I go about welding bearings, so I'm just going to keep doing that. I'm going to make sure that the bearings are a little off center before I go ahead and tack them. I'm not going to weld them a bunch. I'm just going to put a little dainty little TIG weld on all 4 sides. Put a little bit of extra weld on them. Not too much. And there you have it. You have your rolling jack stand head now. Now you're going to be able to slide things off, move them back and forth a whole lot easier. They fit any V-band jack stand for the most part. It rolls so much easier now. So smooth, so nice. And you can slide things, work them back and forth. And if you want, you can go ahead and loosen them up, flip them around. Remember how we offset them? Now those bearings are closer together and you can roll smaller tubing or even just set some square tubing in there and roll it back and forth for cutting or whatever you're trying to do with it. These are just always nice to have, and it's not like you have to get a whole new dedicated jack stand. Now again, guys, I admit these are not original ideas of mine at all. I just watched welders build many of these over the years that I've worked, and I think it's worth talking about. Sometimes the tool you intended to just get through one job ends up being your favorite tool in your toolbox.